The derelict station hung like a corpse in the void, its twisted metal hull scarred by decades of neglect. Theo's calloused fingers spun the worn data chip between them as he studied the massive structure through the shuttle's cracked viewport. The chip caught the dim starlight, its scratched surface reflecting his obsession with fragments of the past. 3 hours, he muttered, his voice carrying that familiar gravelly edge. In and out before the Concord patrol swings back. Jess glanced up from her workstation, auburn hair escaping its practical knot as she tilted her head. Her dark eyes gleamed with curiosity despite the danger ahead. The energy signatures are still there, Theo. Whatever's broadcasting from the station's core, it's old, really old. Her fingers tapped a quick rhythm against her thigh, a telltale sign her mind was racing through possibilities. The pattern was complex today, which meant she'd already started solving puzzles he couldn't see yet. Old enough to matter? Theo's green eyes never left the station, scanning for threats with predatory focus. His jaw clenched slightly, a micro-expression that betrayed his hope despite the stoic exterior. Old enough to be human. Jess's voice carried that clear lilt that emerged when she was excited. The encryption's archaic, but the mathematical constants they're using base 10. Prime number sequences. It's got to be from before the erasure. Theo's spine straightened imperceptibly. Before the erasure. Before every record of humanity's homeworld vanished from galactic archives. Before scattered human colonies lost even the name of their origin. The data chip stopped spinning in his fingers. Move fast, think faster, he said, more to himself than to Jess. We're not dead yet. The shuttle's engines whispered as they approached the station's docking bay. Theo's movements were precise, almost predatory, as he secured his sidearm and maglock boots. Jess gathered her equipment with practiced efficiency, her hands already smudged with grease from modifying their scanning gear. The station's artificial gravity was failing, leaving them to navigate through sections where up and down shifted without warning. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across corridors lined with alien script, warnings in a dozen languages, all proclaiming the station condemned. This way, Jess said, her scanner picking up the signal's source. Her head tilted as she analyzed the readings. The broadcast is coming from what looks like a restricted archive, military-grade encryption, but the core system's been isolated for decades. They moved through the station's bowels, past abandoned research labs and empty crew quarters. Theo's eyes missed nothing, cataloging potential threats and escape routes with tactical precision. His breathing was controlled, steady, the mark of someone who'd learned to survive in hostile territory. The archive chamber was a testament to forgotten technology. Crystalline storage matrices lined the walls, their surfaces dark except for a single active unit that pulsed with soft blue light. Jess approached it with reverence, her fingers dancing over the alien interface with surprising confidence. The signal's encoded in quantum bursts, she explained, her voice dropping to a whisper. It's not just a message, it's coordinates and power signatures. Theo, these readings... She paused, her brown eyes widening. They're showing massive energy sources, ship-class fusion drives, but the design specs don't match anything in current databases. Theo leaned closer, his scarred knuckles gripping the edge of the console. How massive? Dreadnought class. Maybe bigger. Jess's hands moved faster now, her excitement overriding caution. The coordinates point to a dimensional rift, coordinates that shouldn't exist. But if these readings are accurate, there's an entire fleet hidden in fold space. The data chip in Theo's hand seemed to grow warm, an entire fleet. Human ships waiting in the void while their builders were scattered across the galaxy like dust. Can you decrypt the access codes? His voice was barely above a whisper, but the intensity made Jess look up. Already working on it. The encryption's old-style human military. I've seen fragments of it in colony archives. Give me 10 minutes and... The station shuddered. Emergency klaxons began wailing, their sound echoing through the empty corridors. Theo's head snapped toward the chamber entrance, his body automatically shifting into combat stance. Concord patrol, he growled. They're early. Through the station's hull, they could hear the distinctive whine of enforcement vessels' engines. Heavy footsteps echoed in the distance. The clicking, mechanical gait of Wren enforcers. their chitinous exoskeletons unmistakable even through the walls. 5 more minutes, Jess said, her fingers flying over the interface. I can crack this, but I need... We don't have 5 minutes. Theo's hand moved to his weapon, but he hesitated. Running meant abandoning the discovery. Staying meant facing a Concord death squad. The footsteps grew closer. A deep, droning voice echoed through the station's comm system. Compliance is mandatory. Surrender for processing. Theo's jaw clenched, and he stepped closer to Jess. What do you need? The core data's fragmented. I can grab the coordinates and power signatures, but the fleet access codes. She bit her lip, her eyes darting between the readouts. I can't crack them remotely. We'd need to reach the rift itself. Then we take what we can get. Theo's voice was steel. Download everything and let's move. Jess's hands moved with desperate precision, her scanner capturing data streams in compressed bursts. The storage crystal flickered, its light dimming as she pulled information from its quantum matrix. Got it, she breathed. Coordinates to the rift, energy signatures of the fleet inside, and... Her eyes widened. Theo, the timestamps on this data. These ships have been waiting for over 2 centuries. The chamber door exploded inward. A towering Vren enforcer filled the doorway, its multifaceted red eyes gleaming with menace. The creature's black, chitinous exoskeleton reflected the emergency lighting, and its mandibles clicked in rhythmic patterns of authority. Humanity's remnants will be catalogued, the enforcer droned. Compliance is mandatory. Theo's response was immediate and violent. His sidearm barked twice, the shot sparking off the Vren's natural armor. The enforcer staggered but didn't fall, its mechanical precision adapting to the threat. Move! Theo shouted, grabbing Jess's arm. They burst from the chamber as more enforcers rounded the corner, their weapons charging with ominous hums. The station's corridors became a maze of desperate flight. Theo's tactical mind mapped their route while his body moved with practiced efficiency. Jess clutched her scanner, the precious data their only victory in this retreat. They reached the shuttle bay as the first energy blasts scorched the air behind them. The shuttle's engines were already spinning up. Theo's paranoia had paid off again. They dove through the hatch as the Vren enforcers burst into the bay. "Punch it!" Theo shouted, throwing himself into the pilot's seat. The shuttle leaped forward, its engines screaming as they cleared the station's bulk. Behind them, the Concord patrol ship gave chase, its weapons already tracking. But Theo had chosen their approach vector carefully. The shuttle dove into the asteroid field that surrounded the station, using the massive rocks as cover. "Where to?" Jess asked, still catching her breath. Her scanner was secure in her hands, its data intact. Theo's green eyes fixed on the star field ahead. The data chip was warm in his palm, and for the first time in years he felt something like hope. "We find the others," he said. "Every human colony, every scattered ship. If there's a fleet waiting for us in that rift..." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Then it's time to remind the galaxy what humans can do." The shuttle disappeared into the asteroid field, leaving the Concord patrol behind, but the Enforcer's final transmission followed them into the void. Anomaly detected. Escalation protocols initiated. Humanity's return will be prevented. In the silence that followed, Jess looked at her scanner readings and smiled. The fleet was real, the coordinates were solid, and somewhere in fold space, 2 centuries of human engineering waited to come home. The hunt had begun. The Concord Archive Station orbited the gas giant Vorthak like a metallic moon, its surface bristling with sensor arrays and defensive platforms. Theo studied the massive structure through the shuttle's tactical display, his fingers spinning the data chip in that familiar nervous pattern. "Security sweep every 47 minutes, he murmured, his green eyes tracking the patrol patterns. Guard rotations staggered by species. Vren at the main access, Clythar in the data vaults, Zerathi monitoring communications. Jess hunched over her modified scanner, her auburn hair falling across her face as she worked. Her fingers tapped complex rhythms against her thigh, the patterns growing more intricate as she processed the station's defensive systems. "The archive's quantum encrypted," she said, her voice carrying that clear lilt of excitement mixed with concern. "But the human records should be in the historical databases. If Earth was really erased..." She paused, tilting her head to study the readouts. The gaps in the data should be detectable. Should be. Theo's jaw tightened slightly, but the Concords had 2 centuries to cover their tracks. Their shuttle hung in the shadow of a mining platform, its energy signature masked by the facility's industrial output. The past 3 weeks had been spent gathering intelligence, following rumors and half-remembered stories from human colonies scattered across the outer rim. Every lead pointed to the same conclusion. Earth's existence had been surgically removed from galactic history. "Contact coming in," Jess said, her scanner picking up a coded transmission. "It's our inside source." The holographic display shimmered, revealing a tall figure with shimmering blue scales. The Clythar's 4 arms moved in deliberate gestures, and their large amber eyes held a depth of intelligence that Theo had learned to respect. "Commander Theo," the alien said, their dual voices harmonizing in the species' distinctive hum. "I have secured access to the historical archives. The path will be clear for 13 minutes. Theo's spine straightened. 13 minutes to get in, find the data, and get out. That's cutting it close, even for us. "The risk is acceptable," the Clythar continued. "But I must warn you, the archive's contents may challenge your understanding of human history. The Concord's reasons for the erasure—" Their voices carried a note of uncertainty. "They may not be what you expect." Jess looked up from her scanner, her dark eyes meeting Theo's. "What's that supposed to mean?" "We'll find out." Theo's voice carried that gravelly edge of determination. "Zek, we're moving in. Maintain your position and watch for patrols." The Clythar's scales shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of resolve. "I will not abandon you, Commander. Your cause has become mine." The transmission ended, leaving Theo and Jess alone in the shuttle. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken fears and desperate hope. "You ready for this?" Theo asked, his scarred knuckles gripping the pilot's controls. "The truth?" Jess's hands moved to her equipment, checking and rechecking the data extraction tools. "I'm terrified, but I need to know. We all do." The shuttle's engines whispered as they approached the station's service bay. Theo's movements were precise, predatory, as he navigated between the defensive platforms. His tactical mind cataloged every sensor sweep, every potential threat. They docked without incident, the station's automated systems accepting their forged clearance codes. The service corridors were dimly lit, designed for maintenance rather than comfort. Theo and Jess moved through the industrial maze, their footsteps muffled by the station's background hum. "Archive access is through here," Jess whispered, her scanner guiding them through the labyrinthine structure. "Zek's override should get us past the security locks." The archive chamber was vast, its walls lined with crystalline storage matrices that pulsed with soft light. Thousands of years of galactic history resided in these quantum databases, accessible only to those with the highest clearance levels. Jess approached the central console, her fingers dancing over the interface with growing confidence. "The search algorithms are incredibly sophisticated. I can query for specific topics, but the system's AI will flag any suspicious patterns." "How long?" Theo's eyes never stopped moving, scanning for threats. "Give me 5 minutes to map the database structure, then another 5 to extract what we need." Her head tilted as she studied the readouts. "The human historical records should be in Sector 7 Alpha, but—" She paused, her fingers stopping their rhythmic tapping. "That's strange." "What?" "The indexing system shows gaps, massive gaps, like someone took surgical precision to remove entire sections of data." Jess's voice carried a note of growing excitement. "But they couldn't erase everything. There are reference links, metadata tags, even budget allocations for non-existent projects." Theo leaned closer, his scarred hands gripping the console edge. "What kind of projects?" "Diplomatic missions, cultural exchanges, and—" Her eyes widened. "Military contracts, lots of them. The Concord was paying humans for something big, but all the details are gone." The data streams flowed across the display, showing fragments of a puzzle that had been deliberately destroyed. Jess's hands moved faster, her scanner capturing every piece of recoverable information. "There," she breathed, "a reference to the Sol Accords. Date stamp shows 2.5 centuries ago, right before the erasure." "Sol," Theo whispered. "That's old Earth designation, the star system." "The Accords were some kind of treaty. multi-species, with humans as the primary signatories. But the content, Jess's fingers flew over the interface. Everything's been deleted except the legal framework. And look at this, enforcement provisions. The humans were granted significant military authority. The pieces of the puzzle began to form a picture that neither of them had expected. Humans hadn't been erased because they were weak or primitive. They'd been erased because they were powerful. Warning, the console chimed. Unauthorized access detected, security protocols initiating. Theo's body went rigid. How long? 3 minutes until lockdown. I need more time. Jess's hands moved desperately, trying to extract the fragmented data. We take what we have and go. Theo's voice was steel, but his eyes showed the pain of another incomplete victory. Wait, Jess's head snapped up. There's something else, a reference to Project Sanctuary. The budget allocations are massive, and the timeline— She paused, her face paling. Theo, this project started just before the erasure, and it's still active. The chamber's lights began flashing red. Somewhere in the station, alarms were starting to sound. Theo's tactical instinct screamed at him to run, but the data chip in his hand felt like it was burning. Download everything, he growled. Every fragment, every reference. On it! Jess's scanner worked frantically, capturing data streams as fast as the archive systems could provide them. Got it. Sol Accords, Project Sanctuary, and— Her eyes widened. Coordinates, hidden facilities in the outer rim. The chamber door burst open. A squad of Wren enforcers poured in, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the emergency lighting. The lead enforcer's multifaceted eyes fixed on Theo and Jess with mechanical precision. Compliance is mandatory, the creature droned. Surrender for immediate processing. Theo's response was immediate. His sidearm barked 3 times, the shot sparking off Wren armor, but buying precious seconds. Move. They burst from the archive chamber as more enforcers rounded the corner. The station's corridors became a maze of desperate flight, with Theo's tactical mind mapping their escape route while his body moved with practiced efficiency. This way, Zek's voice echoed from a side passage. The Clythar appeared from behind a maintenance panel, their 4 arms wielding Concord weapons with deadly precision. The firefight was brief but intense. Zek's knowledge of the station's layout proved invaluable, guiding them through service tunnels and emergency passages that bypassed the main security checkpoints. They reached the shuttle bay as the station's full security force mobilized. The shuttle's engines were already spinning up, and Theo threw himself into the pilot's seat with familiar urgency. "Punch it!" he shouted, and the shuttle leaped forward. Behind them, the Concord patrol ships gave chase, their weapons already tracking. But Theo had planned for this. The shuttle dove into the gas giant's upper atmosphere, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their energy signature. "Where to now?" Zek asked, their scales shifting to a worried amber. Theo's green eyes fixed on the star charts. The data chip was warm in his palm, and the scanner in Jess's hands held fragments of a truth that could reshape the galaxy. "We find the other facilities," he said. "Project Sanctuary, the Sol Accords, the fleet in the Rift, it's all connected." Jess studied her scanner readings, her mind already working through the implications. "Theo, if humans were the ones who brokered galactic peace, if we had military authority—" She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "What if the Concord didn't erase us because they were afraid of our weapons?" "Then why?" Zek's dual voices harmonized in curiosity. "Because they were afraid of our law." Theo's voice carried a note of grim realization. "And that means the galaxy's been living a lie for 2 centuries. The shuttle disappeared into the gas giant's storms, leaving the Concord patrol behind, but the Enforcer's final transmission followed them into the void. Priority alert. Human archaeological activities detected. Escalation protocols approved. In the silence that followed, the 3 unlikely allies contemplated the magnitude of what they'd discovered. The truth was bigger than they'd imagined, and the stakes were higher than they'd feared. The hunt for humanity's legacy had become a race against time itself. The Concord research outpost clung to the asteroid's surface like a metallic parasite, its fusion generators casting harsh light across the rocky terrain. Theo studied the facility through the shuttle's tactical display, his fingers working the data chip in that familiar nervous pattern. 47 personnel, he murmured, his green eyes cataloging defensive positions. Mixed species garrison, but the research team's mostly Zerathi. They don't fight worth a thing, but their tech... He paused, jaw tightening. Their tech could be trouble. Jess hunched over her scanner, her auburn hair escaping its knot as she analyzed the facility's energy signatures. Her fingers tapped complex rhythms against her thigh, the patterns growing more urgent as she processed the readings. The rift generators in the central lab, she said, her voice carrying that clear lilt of excitement mixed with concern. But it's not just any dimensional manipulation device, the quantum resonance patterns. She tilted her head, studying the data. Theo, this thing's designed specifically to open rifts in fold space, military applications only. Which means it can reach our fleet. Theo's spine straightened, hope and determination warring in his expression. Zek's four arms moved in deliberate gestures as they checked their weapons. The Clythar's scales had shifted to a deep blue of resolve, and their amber eyes held the steady focus of someone who'd made peace with necessary violence. The facility's guard rotations are predictable, Zek said, their dual voices harmonizing in tactical analysis, but they have automated defense systems, turrets, barrier fields, proximity sensors. A direct assault would be challenging. Good thing we're not going direct. Theo's voice carried that gravelly edge of a man who'd learned to survive impossible odds. Jess, how long to crack their security? If I can get physical access to their network node, maybe 20 minutes. Her hands moved to her equipment, checking the modified scanning gear she'd been perfecting. But I'll need cover and I'll need time. You'll have both. Theo's scarred knuckles gripped the shuttle's controls. Zek, you're with Jess. I'm going to give the guards something else to think about. The Clythar's scales shifted to a worried amber. Commander, a solo diversion against a fortified position is suicide, Theo finished, unless you know exactly what you're doing. His green eyes met Zek's, and the alien saw something there that made them step back. I've been fighting impossible odds my whole life. This is just another day. The shuttle's engines whispered as they approached the asteroid's far side. Theo's movements were precise, predatory, as he suited up for the operation. His tactical mind had already mapped the facility's weaknesses, identified the targets that would cause maximum chaos. 30 minutes, he said, securing his helmet, in and out before their reinforcements arrive. Theo, Jess's voice was soft, but her dark eyes held fierce determination. Be careful, we need you. You need that device more. He paused at the airlock, his hand resting on the controls. Find out what happened to our fleet. Find out why we were erased. We will. Zek's dual voices carried absolute conviction. You have my word. The airlock cycled, and Theo disappeared into the asteroid's shadow. Jess and Zek waited in tense silence, watching the facility's security displays for signs of his approach. He's insane, Jess whispered, her hands moving nervously over her equipment. He's human, Zek replied. In my experience, the distinction is often academic. The first explosion lit up the asteroid's far side, a brilliant flash that overloaded the facility's sensors. Alarms began wailing as the outpost's security forces scrambled to respond to the apparent meteor strike. That's our cue, Jess said, her hands already moving over the shuttle's controls. Take us in? They landed at the facility's service dock while the guards rushed to investigate the explosion. The asteroid's weak gravity made movement awkward, but Jess's scanner guided them through the maintenance tunnels toward the central lab. Network nodes ahead, she whispered, her voice tight with concentration. But there's something else, the quantum resonance from the Rift device. It's not just theoretical. They've been testing it. Testing it how? Zek's amber eyes gleamed with concern. They've been opening rifts, small ones but stable. Jess's head tilted as she studied the readings. And they've been getting responses. Energy signatures, comm bursts, even mass displacement readings. Someone's been answering, Zek breathed. But who? The lab's security door yielded to Jess's modified scanner, its lock mechanism surrendering to her careful manipulation. The chamber beyond was a testament to advanced engineering, its walls lined with quantum field generators and dimensional manipulation arrays. At the center of it all stood the Rift device itself, a crystalline structure that pulsed with contained energy. The air around it shimmered with barely contained power, and Jess's scanner went wild with readings. "Beautiful," she whispered, her hands dancing over the device's control interface. "The engineering's incredible. They've solved the stability problem, eliminated the cascade failures that plagued earlier models." "Can you operate it?" Zek kept watch at the door, their weapons ready. "Give me 15 minutes." Jess's fingers moved with desperate precision, her scanner interfacing with the device's systems. The control protocols are complex, but the basic principles. She paused, her eyes widening. "Zek, look at these test logs." The Clythar moved closer, their scales shifting to curious amber. "What am I seeing?" "They've been probing the Rift coordinates from the archive data, the ones that supposedly lead to our fleet." Jess's voice carried growing excitement. "And they've been getting responses, energy signatures, quantum handshakes, even partial data streams." "The fleet's real," Zek said, their dual voices harmonizing in wonder. "More than real. It's been waiting." Jess's hands moved faster now, her scanner capturing every piece of data from the device's memory banks. "But there's something else. The responses aren't random, they're intelligent, like the ships are trying to communicate." Another explosion echoed through the facility, closer this time. Theo's diversion was working, but it was also escalating. The guards would soon realize they were dealing with an intruder rather than a natural disaster. "How much longer?" Zek asked, their amber eyes fixed on the corridor beyond. "Almost there." Jess's head tilted as she studied the final data streams. The device's quantum matrix is incredibly sophisticated. It's not just opening rifts, it's mapping the entire fold space network. And according to these readings, she paused, her face paling, there are thousands of them. Rifts, hidden facilities, entire fleets scattered across dimensional pockets. Human fleets? Some of them, but others, Jess's fingers stopped their rhythmic tapping. Others are Concord, secret projects, hidden installations, weapons caches. The Concord's been building their own shadow fleet in fold space. The implications hit them both at the same time. The galaxy's apparent peace was built on hidden arsenals and secret preparations. The Concord hadn't just erased humanity, they'd been preparing for war. "We need to go," Zek said, their scales shifting to urgent amber. "Now?" "1 more minute." Jess's scanner worked frantically, capturing the device's complete schematics. "If we can build our own rift generator, we can reach the fleet directly. We won't need to steal one." The lab's main door exploded inward. A squad of Zerathi guards poured in, their energy weapons already charging. The insectoid aliens' compound eyes gleamed with predatory focus as they surrounded the intruders. "Surrender immediately," the lead guard chittered. "You will be processed for interrogation." Zek's response was immediate and violent. Their 4 arms moved in perfect coordination, weapons barking as they laid down suppressing fire. The Zerathi scattered, their fragile exoskeletons no match for military-grade ammunition. "Move!" Zek shouted, grabbing Jess's arm. They burst from the lab as more guards rounded the corner, their energy weapons turning the corridor into a maze of deadly light. Jess clutched her scanner, the precious data their only victory in this retreat. The device's schematics were complete, but the real prize was the intelligence about the Concord's hidden fleets. They reached the service dock as the facility's full security force mobilized. The shuttle's engines were already spinning up, and they dove through the hatch as energy blasts scorched the air behind them. "Punch it!" Jess shouted, throwing herself into the co-pilot's seat. The shuttle leaped forward, its engines screaming as they cleared the asteroid's surface. Behind them, the facility's defenses came online. Turrets tracked their movement, energy beams reaching out like grasping fingers, but the shuttle was already beyond effective range, disappearing into the asteroid field's protective maze. "Where's Theo?" Jess asked, her voice tight with concern. "Coming in hot," Zek replied, their amber eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Very hot." Another shuttle burst from the asteroid's far side, its hull scorched and smoking. Theo's voice crackled over the comm. "Hope you got what we came for, because I just turned that place into a war zone." "We got it," Jess said, her scanner secure in her hands. "The device schematics, the test data, and She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Theo, the Concord's been building their own fleet in fold space. Hidden arsenals, secret installations. The galaxy's not as peaceful as it appears." "Then it's time to change that." Theo's voice carried cold determination. "How long to build our own rift generator?" Jess studied the captured schematics, her mind already working through the engineering challenges. "With the right materials and a skilled team, maybe 3 weeks. But we'll need rare elements, quantum processors, and—" She smiled, her eyes gleaming with possibility. "We'll need to find the other human colonies, the ones with the tools and knowledge to build something this complex. Then that's what we do." Theo's shuttle fell into formation beside theirs, 2 damaged ships carrying the seeds of revolution. "We find our people, we build our weapons, and we wake up our fleet." The shuttles disappeared into the asteroid field, leaving the burning facility behind. But the Concord's response was already mobilizing, their hidden fleet stirring in fold space like awakening giants. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity could do when pushed to the edge, and the lesson would be written in fire and starlight across the void. The dimensional rift opened like a wound in space, its edges crackling with barely contained energy. Theo stood at the shuttle's viewport, his scarred hands gripping the controls as reality bent around them. The data chip in his palm felt warm, as if responding to the proximity of what they'd spent weeks searching for. "Quantum field stable," Jess reported, her voice tight with concentration. Her auburn hair was tied back severely, and her dark eyes reflected the rift's otherworldly glow. The coordinates were perfect. Whatever built this navigation system knew exactly where they were going. Zek's 4 arms moved in careful patterns over the scanner array, their blue scales rippling with nervous energy. The space beyond the rift, it's not empty. Mass displacement readings are enormous. "Ships," Theo said, his voice carrying quiet certainty. "Our ships!" The shuttle crossed the rift's threshold, and suddenly they were somewhere else. Not another star system, but a pocket of fold space where the normal rules of physics bent to accommodate impossible architecture. Before them stretched a fleet that defied comprehension. Hundreds of vessels floated in perfect formation, their hulls dark but unmarked by time. The smallest dwarfed any ship in the current galactic fleet, while the largest stretched for kilometers, mobile cities of metal and ceramic that radiated dormant power. "My God," Jess whispered, her scanner picking up energy signatures that shouldn't exist. "They're not just ships, they're alive. Minimal power draw, but all systems functional, like they're sleeping." Theo's jaw tightened as he studied the nearest vessel. Its design was unmistakably human. Clean lines, efficient engineering, but built on a scale that spoke of vast resources and absolute confidence. "How long have they been here?" "According to the quantum decay patterns, 2 centuries, maybe longer." Jess's head tilted as she analyzed the readings. "But that's impossible. These ships use technology that's decades ahead of anything in the current galactic database. Unless humanity was already advanced when they were erased," Zek said, their dual voices harmonizing in wonder. "Unless your people were building these vessels before the Concord decided you were too dangerous to exist." The shuttle approached the nearest ship, a sleek destroyer that could have housed a small city. Its hull was unmarked by battle damage, its weapon systems dormant but clearly functional. As they drew closer, the ship's running lights flickered to life. "It's responding to our presence," Jess breathed. "Something's scanning us." The comm system crackled to life, and a voice spoke in clear, unaccented standard. "Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted space. Identify yourself or be destroyed." Theo's spine straightened. The voice was artificial, but the underlying authority was unmistakably human. "This is Commander Theo of the Human Remnant Fleet. We're here to reclaim what's ours." Silence stretched for long moments. Then, genetic markers confirmed. "Welcome home, Commander. We have been waiting." The destroyer's docking bay opened like a flower, revealing a chamber that could have accommodated a dozen shuttles. As they landed, Theo felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the sense of coming home to a place he'd never been. The ship's corridors were pristine, their walls lined with displays showing star charts and tactical information. The artificial gravity was perfect. the air clean and breathable. It was as if the ship had been maintained by invisible hands, waiting for its crew to return. "The central command center should be this way," Jess said, her scanner guiding them through the maze of passages. "But these readings, Theo, this ship's AI isn't just functional, it's evolved. 2 centuries of self-modification and improvement." They found the command center at the ship's heart, a vast chamber dominated by holographic displays showing the galaxy's current political situation. The central chair was clearly designed for human proportions, its design both elegant and functional. "Commander," the AI's voice spoke from hidden speakers, "I am Cortana 7, Tactical Intelligence System of the UES Valiant. I have maintained this fleet in readiness for your return." "Our return?" Theo's voice carried careful control. "We're not the original crews." "No," the AI agreed, "but you are human, and according to my final orders, any human commander of suitable rank and determination was to be granted full access to fleet resources." The holographic displays shifted, showing battle formations and strategic analyses. "You appear to qualify." Jess approached the nearest console, her fingers dancing over the interface with growing excitement. "The technology's incredible. Fusion drives that shouldn't be possible, weapon systems that could slag a planet, defensive screens that bend space itself." She paused, her eyes widening. "Cortana 7, what were your final orders? Why was this fleet hidden?" Cortana 7's holographic avatar shimmered into existence above the central console, a stylized representation of a human woman, her eyes glowing with analytical light. "My primary directive was Project Sanctuary. This fleet, along with numerous hidden facilities across fold space, was constructed under the Sol Accords. The Accords were a multi-species treaty brokered by humanity designed to maintain galactic peace through a system of mutual defense and regulated expansion. Humanity, as the primary signatories, held significant military authority to enforce these accords." Theo's mind reeled. "So the Concord didn't erase us because they feared our weapons, but because they feared our law?" "Precisely, Commander," Cortana 7 confirmed. "The Concord, a rising power at the time, found the strictures of the Sol Accords restrictive to their expansionist ambitions. They initiated a clandestine operation to systematically erase all records of Earth and humanity's role as galactic peacekeepers. They then began building their own shadow fleet in fold space, intending to eventually dismantle the Accords and establish their own dominance." "They were preparing for war," Jess whispered, the pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. "Indeed," Cortana 7 replied. "My secondary directive was to remain dormant, maintaining the fleet and monitoring galactic communications for specific triggers. The activation of the dimensional rift generator on the Concord research outpost, combined with your genetic markers, signaled the appropriate time for awakening." "So the Concord knows we're back," Theo stated, his voice grim. "Their escalation protocols have been initiated," Cortana 7 confirmed, a new set of tactical displays appearing, showing Concord fleet movements. "Their hidden fleets are stirring. They believe they have the advantage of surprise and superior numbers in fold space." "They're about to be very surprised," Theo said, a cold fire in his eyes. "Cortana 7, what is the status of the rest of Project Sanctuary, the other hidden facilities, the thousands of rifts Jess found?" "All Project Sanctuary assets are under my network control," the AI replied. "The hidden facilities contain advanced manufacturing, research, and training centers. The rifts lead to other dormant fleets, strategic resource caches, and secure communication hubs. We have been preparing for this contingency for 2 centuries. "And the scattered human colonies?" Jess asked, hope blossoming in her chest. "Can we reach them?" "My long-range comms arrays have been broadcasting a coded signal for the past 2 decades, awaiting a response from any surviving human populations," Cortana 7 explained. "The signal contains instructions for activating dormant human-designed communication relays. Several colonies have recently responded, albeit unknowingly, to these broadcasts." "Then that's our first priority," Theo declared. "Cortana 7, establish secure communication with every human colony that has responded. Inform them of the fleet's awakening and our intentions. Zek, Jess, we need to bring our people home." Over the next few weeks, the UES Valiant became the nexus of a galactic awakening. Cortana 7, with its 2 centuries of self-improvement, proved to be an invaluable asset. It coordinated the activation of other dormant human fleets across fold space, each commanded by its own advanced AI, all networked under Cortana 7's overarching intelligence. The sheer scale of humanity's hidden power was staggering. The initial communications with the scattered human colonies were met with a mix of disbelief, awe, and cautious hope. Generations had grown up with the myth of a lost Earth, a forgotten homeworld erased from history. Now, a voice from the void was telling them that not only was Earth real, but its legacy, a vast, powerful fleet, had returned. Theo, Jess, and Zek became the faces of this resurgence. Theo, with his hardened pragmatism and tactical brilliance, commanded respect. Jess, with her unparalleled technical genius, inspired awe and trust. Zek, the Clythar who had risked everything for humanity's truth, became a symbol of interspecies cooperation and the moral compass of their cause. They began bringing the scattered human populations into the fold space sanctuaries. These facilities, designed for long-term habitation and self-sufficiency, offered safety and resources beyond anything the struggling colonies had known. Engineers, scientists, and even long-forgotten military specialists from the colonies were integrated into the fleet's operations, their ancestral knowledge rekindled by the advanced technology of Project Sanctuary. As humanity gathered its strength, the Concord's response intensified. Their hidden fleets, though formidable, were still a fraction of the awakened human armada. The Concord leadership, arrogant in their two-century deception, initially dismissed the human return as a rogue faction, a desperate last stand. But as more and more human ships emerged from fold space rifts, and as their long-dormant weapon systems hummed to life, panic began to spread through the Concord hierarchy. The first major confrontation occurred at the edge of the Cygnus Nebula, a strategic choke point the Concord had fortified with their own hidden fleet. Theo, commanding the UES Valiant, led a vanguard of human warships. The battle was a brutal display of technological superiority and tactical mastery. Human ships, designed for efficiency and devastating firepower, outmaneuvered and outgunned the Concord vessels. Their defensive screens, capable of bending space itself, shrugged off volleys that would have crippled lesser ships. The battle was a decisive victory for humanity. The Concord fleet was shattered, their command structure in disarray. The news of the human victory spread like wildfire across the galaxy, shattering the Concord's carefully constructed narrative of peace and stability. Other species, long suppressed or wary of the Concord's growing power, began to question the official history. "The galaxy is watching, Commander," Cortana 7 reported after the battle, its holographic avatar showing a surge in galactic comm traffic. Many species are requesting diplomatic contact. Some are even offering aid. They remember the Soul Accords, Theo realized. They remember what humanity stood for. Indeed, Cortana 7 confirmed, the truth of your erasure is beginning to unravel. The Concord's lies are exposed. Despite their military successes, Theo knew that a full-scale war would be devastating for the entire galaxy. Their goal wasn't conquest, but restoration, to re-establish the Soul Accords and bring true peace. Cortana 7, prepare a galaxy-wide broadcast, Theo ordered. Full disclosure, the truth about Earth, the Soul Accords, Project Sanctuary, and the Concord's deception. Include evidence from the archive data Jess recovered. The broadcast, delivered in every major galactic language, shook the foundations of Concord authority. Jess's meticulous data recovery, combined with Cortana 7's vast archives, presented irrefutable proof of the Concord's treachery. The galaxy learned of Earth, a vibrant homeworld that had brokered peace, only to be erased and its people scattered. They learned of the Soul Accords, a framework for mutual prosperity, and of the Concord's systematic dismantling of that peace for their own gain. The revelation sparked outrage and rebellion across Concord-controlled space. Member species once loyal began to defect. Internal dissent grew, and the Concord's military, already reeling from their defeat at Cygnus, found themselves fighting on multiple fronts. Recognizing the inevitable, a faction within the Concord leadership, horrified by the scale of their government's deception, initiated secret negotiations with Theo. They sought to avoid total collapse, offering to surrender and cooperate in exchange for leniency and a role in a new galactic order. Theo, guided by Cortana 7's strategic analysis and Zek's moral counsel, agreed to the terms. His goal was not vengeance, but justice and lasting peace. The Concord leadership responsible for the erasure and the subsequent deception were brought to trial before a newly formed Galactic Tribunal, composed of representatives from species who had suffered under Concord rule. The trials were long and arduous, but the evidence was overwhelming. The truth was laid bare for all to see. The architects of humanity's erasure were held accountable, and the galaxy began the slow, painful process of healing. With the Concord's power broken, the Soul Accords were reinstated, but with significant revisions to ensure greater transparency and accountability. Humanity, no longer erased, took its rightful place as a leading voice in the galactic community, not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace. The vast human fleet, once a hidden weapon, became the backbone of a new galactic defense force, ensuring that no single power could ever again threaten the peace of the cosmos. Project Sanctuary continued to thrive, its fold space facilities becoming centers of innovation and interspecies cooperation. Humans, reunited with their long-lost heritage, poured their ingenuity into solving galactic challenges, sharing their advanced technology and knowledge for the betterment of all. Jess, now a celebrated scientist, led a team dedicated to further exploring fold space and unlocking its secrets, ensuring that humanity's mastery of dimensional travel would always be used for exploration and connection, not concealment. Zek, revered as a hero and a symbol of unity, became a key diplomat in the new Galactic Council. Their dual voices, once used for tactical analysis, now harmonized in negotiations, bridging cultural divides and fostering understanding between species. The Clythar's unwavering belief in humanity had been vindicated, and they found a new purpose in building a truly just and equitable galaxy. Theo, the scarred survivor who had carried the weight of a lost past, found peace in the present. He oversaw the integration of the scattered human colonies, ensuring their smooth transition into the fold space sanctuaries and the wider galactic community. He often stood at the viewport of the UES Valiant, watching the vast human fleet move through the stars, no longer hidden, no longer forgotten. The data chip, once a symbol of his desperate hunt, now rested in his personal archives, a reminder of the journey that had brought humanity home. The galaxy had learned a profound lesson, that truth, no matter how deeply buried, would always find a way to emerge, and that humanity, once erased, had returned not to conquer, but to remind the cosmos what true peace, forged in justice and unity, truly meant. The hunt was over, the legacy was restored, and the future, for the first time in 2 centuries, was bright.